Welcome to Robot Unicorn. We are so glad that you are here. As always, let's start the show with a question from Scott.
All right, Jess. Today I want to ask you about something I've noticed in you. And also I feel it often too. But often I feel like we're both feeling kind of guilty about not spending enough time with each of our three girls. Even though, like outside of work, we try to be done at a good time. We try and be 100% with them when we're done work until they're in bed. And on weekends, we often try not to make too many plans so that we can really spend time with them. But yet it sometimes doesn't seem like it's enough for them. So I don't know if bridging the gap is the right word or right phrase, but how do we bridge the gap between we spend all this time with them, but yet we feel guilty and it doesn't seem like that's a necessary feeling.
I know. It's tough. I feel like I want to start the conversation off by just talking as a mom, and then maybe I can switch to trying to talk about it as a therapist partway through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real experience for us, right? So
I feel like it's something that if a client was coming to me with this, I would respond one way. But then, of course, as the parent going through it, it feels a little bit different. So I'll give an example. So this is what I've been struggling with this week. Our youngest daughter has had strep throat this week, and strep throat is terrible if you've ever had it. I've had it so many times in my life, and it always really puts me out. So our youngest has had strep throat. So basically, she's just been really upset, crying. She's wanted to be sitting on me. Like, I think there was one day this week, she sat on me for like 5 straight hours, just basically crying.
Yep.
It was awful. That was before the antibiotics really kicked in.
Really struggling with that.
Yeah, and she's feeling better now, thankfully. So there's one day this week where she's sitting on me for 5 hours. And I'm doing my very best to also talk with the other girls, but it's not feeling like enough to them.
Anytime you would get off, or you would try and get the youngest off your lap and do something for the others, she would have a very hard time. She was crying.
She was crying. Yeah, she'd be like...
Which makes sense. She was in a ton of pain.
She was in so much pain. And so in that moment, I knew of my 3 kids, her physical need to be close to me, to be on me was the greatest. Like, she had to be with me. Yeah. So we did our best to also still be with our older 2 kids. But then, of course, after 2 days of the one child being on mom, their jealousy starts to creep up in the older 2. And then all of a sudden you start to hear, because our kids are very emotionally aware, which is great, but you start to hear, Mom, I'm feeling really frustrated because you're only hanging out with my sister and you're not playing with me. And so then all of a sudden you start hearing that and you do start feeling guilty. You're like, you just started summer holidays and this is the start of your break and I can't spend any time with you. And our daughters are expressing that to us and we're trying our best, right? But anytime I try and get off the couch or do anything, then our youngest also starts crying and having a really hard time, which reminded me of like when she was a newborn and we had the similar kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just when they're sick. It's like if you have a new baby, siblings. Now you can't hang out with your older kids. And then they start to feel upset. And it's like, I would try and connect with them, hey, why don't we sit and watch a show together or read a book while I'm sitting here? Or even the one day I said to our oldest, why don't we pretend to be characters? Like I'll be a prince and you be my mom, the queen, and let's pretend to be a prince and a queen. And she's like, yeah, but it's not playing horsies outside. I'm like, I'm trying here. I'm trying to be a good parent. So I think this conversation is kind of stemming from that, right? So then at the end of the day, you get them all to bed and you just kind of feel like, have I done enough for them today? But at the very same time, I've done everything I possibly can for them today.
Well, what I find interesting too is even though, let's say I'm playing with them that whole time, I'm hanging out with them, they still seem to need both of our attention. Yeah, it's not enough to just have one of us.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with the baby and you've been hanging out with the older kids. Yeah. But then it's still, well, Mom, you didn't play with me today.
I noticed that anytime you've traveled too, they will afterwards, or anytime I've traveled, afterwards they gravitate to the one that's been away because they feel like they've been missing out on that time and attention from that parent.
Yeah. And I am so grateful. I think something that's amazing about our children is they're so emotionally aware. So they realize that they haven't had the connection time that they need. And so instead of having really challenging behaviors at this point with our 4 and 7-year-old, they will actually just tell us.
That's been kind of nice.
That's been really nice. So I will say that the work that we've done to help them understand their emotions and what's going on inside of their body, for the most part, they're able to communicate that with us, which is nice.
Our 4-year-old is getting better, but I wouldn't say she's
she's fully there.
Yeah, she's not fully there. She will tell us often, but not always.
Not always. So I'm just going to switch into education mode for a minute. There's like between the ages of 5 to 7, we typically start to see that shift of being able to express your emotions, being able to think a little bit more logically during like these difficult times. So since our oldest is 7, she's started to have that shift happen where she can express her emotions and see, well, mom's with the toddler who's sick, right? So she might not have as much time with me, but she still struggles with it. So she'll still let us know that it's hard, which is fair and valid. Whereas our 4-year-old, she's just on the cusp of that shift. So sometimes she can say, Mommy, play with me, or Mommy, I want to snuggle, or Mommy, I miss you. She'll say that. But then other times she'll be like, I don't like Mommy. Mommy's yucky and Mommy's the worst. And so other times she'll express that she needs that time with me by trying to push me away, by calling me yucky.
Yeah, she's trying to protect herself.
Saying I don't like Mommy. So her defenses will be really high. So that's the other way she'll show us that she doesn't have the time with us that she needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're just expressing all of that. How do you feel when the kids are like that with you? Like, do they say the same kind of thing to you? Like, Daddy didn't play enough with me today.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're experiencing the exact same thing, just in different ways. Because I would say, like, I was going to call her the baby, but our toddler.
Yeah, one thing about us is, and we know that this is not the healthiest thing, but we always call our toddler the baby just because she's our third baby.
Yeah, the girls do too.
We all just call her our baby. Anyway.
She tends to still gravitate more towards you.
Yeah.
So then the older two, I'm often doing things with them. And I've kind of made it a bit of a, I don't know if habit's the right word, but I try and spend extra time with them. So some mornings I'll take our middle daughter and I'll have a coffee and she has a donut or we share a donut together. I would say I do a lot with our oldest daughter. Yeah. So she and I do lots of different things together. I am the one that takes her to karate twice a week. I mean, we do lots of stuff. We do little projects together constantly. And
yeah, you guys are really connected. And I truly believe we're both very connected to our kids. And that's why we have these feelings. I was saying before too, there's a few of our team members here. I was expressing to them. So yesterday we came off of a couple days of strep throat. It was really hard. So yesterday was actually my birthday. And I said to the kids first thing in the morning, because I knew I hadn't spent a ton of time with the older two, it's like, before I go to work, let's go early and I'm going to go take you out for a donut and a coffee. And you guys can they like to get peppermint tea. So we did that. The first thing we did in the morning, I went, got donuts and peppermint tea with them. Then I came in, I had to work for a few hours. And then since it was my birthday, I was like, I'll take off a little bit early today. And then I decided to go home and was like, girls, do you want to get your nails done with me? We got our nails done together. Then we came home, had some more connected time. We had family over. We spent time together. And then because it was my birthday, they thought I should have the privilege of putting them, all 3 of them to bed, which was really cute. And actually does show that they know that I delight in time with them.
yeah, it's the greatest gift of all, putting your children to bed.
Yeah, like TMI, but I was sitting on the toilet and going pee, and the girls come rushing into the bathroom, like the older two, the 4 and 7-year-old. They come rushing in the bathroom and they say, Mom, you get to put us to bed tonight. We told Daddy that you can put us to bed because it's your birthday. As if it was like the greatest gift that they could have ever given me. And at first I was just joking with them, like, no, I don't want to do that. And they were like, you're teasing, Mom. Of course you want to put us to bed. It's your birthday. So that was a good sign. So my entire birthday, and then I was kind of bugging the girls. I was like, girls, is it your birthdays today or is it my birthday? Because I feel like on my birthday I took you out for donuts. I got your nails done. Now I get to put you to bed. And then they were laughing. They're like, yeah, it kind of feels like our birthday too.
Yeah, it was a special day for them too.
It was a special day for them too, which was so special to me. And then I put them both to bed. Our middle child, she wanted me to hug her like a koala until she fell asleep. So I laid there hugging her like a koala. And then she fell asleep in my arms, which was so precious. And then my oldest daughter, she wanted to chit chat and talk. So we talked for about 35 minutes. Then after 35 minutes of talking, I was like, okay, I have to go put your sister to bed, the baby, the toddler, to bed. And she was like, oh, Mom, you never spend enough time with me. And I was just like, I don't know what else to do here, my friend. Like, I feel like I've tried to give you so much time today. I will keep it light and playful when she'll make a comment like that, because she was also kind of realized, I think, that it was a little bit silly. Knows. She's like, Mom, you don't spend ever enough time with me. I'm like, I think I've spent quite a bit of time with you tonight. And she's like, Mom. Anyway, But even those comments, and maybe that's like the deeper thing here, I still feel like they trigger something in me. So maybe there's something deeper going on, because even though she's just bugging me, I always think about my dad used to say, behind every joke, there's a little bit of truth. So I still always think like there's something deeper there for her, even though she's bugging me about I don't spend enough time with her. There's something about her that feels that that's true. So after that really connected 35 minutes of laying in bed with her and cuddling and talking, and then kisses and hugs and all that before I go to put the other daughter to bed, she just makes that little comment, oh, ha ha ha, you don't spend enough time with me. And it just triggers me, and then I feel guilty for the rest of the night. So I don't know what that's about. I'm sure we can get there.
That time of the show, folks. The time where we shamelessly self-promote Nurtured First. Picture this. You're peacefully playing with your toddler until all of a sudden they're hiding behind the couch. But they're peering just far enough above the cushions to stare you straight in the eyes as they go red-faced and proudly poop. You've tried everything, letting them run around naked, promising them a toy pony if they used the potty, and even contemplated moving to a deserted island where diapers grow on trees. But nothing seems to work. Enter the Potty Toolkit by Nurtured First. This magical bundle of joy is designed to make potty training fun, easy, and, dare I say it, enjoyable for both you and your child. It's like having a team of potty training fairies at your beck and call, without the glitter and creepy wings. The Potty Toolkit is packed with over 40 pages of stories, activities, games, and worksheets that will get your child excited to use the potty. And the best part? It's all backed by decades of research and designed by a team of child therapists who know their stuff. So, if you're ready to ditch the diapers, head over to the link in the show notes and grab the Potty Toolkit for 10% off. Don't wait, go to the link in the show notes and get the Potty Toolkit by Nurtured First for 10% off today using the code ROBOTUNICORN. Your child and your bathroom floor will thank you. Can I ask a question, though?
Please.
Is it ever going to be enough?
Mm-hmm.
Like, at any point, will a child ever say, I've spent too much time with you, Mom, or I've spent too much time with you, Dad. I want some space. I feel like at their ages,
it will never
that's
be
not
enough.
going to be the case ever. They're always going to want to spend more time with you.
Yeah. And I did kind of jokingly say that to her. I said, hun, like, you just love spending time with me. Hey, and I love spending time with you too. When do you think it will ever be enough time? And she goes, well, you're my mom, so never. So she literally said that, right?
Go. Yeah.
So, and then we were just kind of playfully being with each other. And I was like, never enough time. And then I started joking, well, what if I did this? And what if I did that? Like all these things that annoy her. I'm like, would it be enough time then? And she's like, never. It would never be enough time.
So wouldn't Dr. Neufeld and Dr. Mattei from their books say that that's exactly what you want?
Yes. And I know that, like, theoretically, this is right. Like, it's the right thing that your 7-year-old can't get enough of you. But in my heart, it's hard to hear because it's like, but I try so hard to give you enough of me,
Is it those people-pleasing tendencies coming out, even for your children? Interesting. I think this might be a revelation.
Yeah. I think there is a piece of people pleasing with the kids that I struggle with, that I am self-aware about. And I wonder if it's like, is it people pleasing with them, or is it just like a guilt of being a working mom? Because I wasn't always a working mom.
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure. Like, I can't relate to that, right? I feel like it's normal for men to just work always, right?
Yeah, like you don't have this underlying feeling like, oh, well, I should be home with them.
It's not like I go on Instagram and people are shaming me for working full time and not spending every hour of the day with my kids. So I can't really relate to that feeling. And I mean, that could very well be part of it for you. I don't know.
I think it is.
I still feel that too, though. Like, I still feel like I don't spend enough time with the kids, even though, honestly, we say no to a lot of things, and we talked about that in another episode. We say no to a lot of things specifically because we know our kids need our time and attention. So,
yeah, and we say no to things that would even involve the kids being with us, but they wouldn't have our undivided time and attention, so that we can spend, let's say, a Saturday with like tons of friends where there's a million kids there. Or we'll just be like, you know what? No, we'll just stay home and hang out just with our own kids.
Yeah.
Like, so we prioritize them a lot. So it's funny that I think from anyone like looking in, they'd probably be like, man, you guys spend so much time with your kids. Like, how could you feel bad about it? But I do think that there's still that underlying feeling of like, yeah, but is it enough? We struggle
We
with
basically
that.
feel it's never enough.
Yeah, so I guess maybe our kids are feeding off that feeling too, right? Like they
Yeah.
probably also feel like they probably get that
Well, maybe it's a
feeling
chicken
too.
and egg situation where maybe we feel that way, or maybe they've said it. We don't know which came first, but we all kind of feel like we want to spend all of this time together. And is that a wrong feeling?
Right.
I feel like we make, in general, the most choices to spend the most time with our kids. So, like, most of what we do is we try and spend time with, as just a family, our group of five, our family of five. So, yeah, I kind of feel guilty sometimes when we're talking about work after dinner or something like that. But in general, personally, I feel like we do a pretty good job. So I don't feel that much guilt around the subject because I know in general they're going to want to spend as much possible time with us.
And as they should.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess there's that piece. Like a child should want to be in relationship with their parent as much as possible. And it's okay for them to tolerate disappointment every once in a while when you have a sick child and I think, I don't know if I was talking about this with you or someone else, but like treating your children fairly doesn't mean it's always like equal amount of time with each. Right. So it was fair this week for our youngest to get the most time because she was super sick and she really needed it.
She was trying to shove her hands down her mouth because she wanted us to take the sore throat away.
Right. So she needed that time. And maybe another week, like there was another week, our middle child was really struggling a lot. And I really had to pour in with her because I could see her defenses were up with me because she was saying, I don't like you, mommy. You know, you're yucky. And that was a sign for me of, oh, she needs more closeness with me.
Yeah. And you have to remember last week, I went on a field trip with our oldest and we had a party for our oldest. And
last week, our oldest was finishing at her school. So that was a tough week for her. So we poured into her, right? So I think that's the other thing I need to remember and be okay with just validating those feelings in our kids. Like, I know it's really tricky. You're disappointed right now because you wish
you could spend us so much.
Yeah, you wish I didn't have to take care of your sister and you wish that she wasn't sick, and I get that. But, you know, today is one of those days where she really needs a little bit of extra time, and I wonder what you can do to...
Yeah, I feel like with our oldest, you can have that conversation. You can say, hey, let's try and figure out something. Maybe you can do something with dad instead.
Yeah, and then what we can do with our oldest is we will often make a plan. Like she loves to have it in the schedule and know when I will have that undivided time with her. So for example, this week, what I said was, I can't give that to you today because look at what's going on here. But what about Friday night? Dad will put the other girls to bed and we'll do a sleepover together. I didn't tell you that.
You did not tell me that. Interesting.
So Friday night, we have in the schedule that I will do a sleepover with her, which all involves like, she's like, oh, then we can do each other's makeup and we can do like, there's a whole list of things she wants to do in our sleepover. But there was something about having that on the calendar that made her feel at peace. Like, okay, I know we'll get that time. Now with our 4-year-old, that's a bit trickier when she wants that time with us because it's not as
sometimes she doesn't understand that.
Yeah. She's more like, I need it right now when I need it. So I feel like some of the things, and this is things that you can do whether you have a child that's sick or you just had a new baby, like how can we create those little bridges, those little tiny moments, we call them, of interaction and connection that can help get them through. So with our middle daughter, maybe it's like sitting and reading a couple books together.
Well, she loves getting that donut too sometimes. So if you can, I try to do that before going to work with her.
Yeah, we'll just take her to a local cafe and we'll just get a donut. It takes like 30 minutes. We'll sit down with her, eat the donut together. But that means the world to her, like that intentional quality time. So doing something like that. The quality interactions don't have to be big in order for them to be meaningful for them. And I find with our middle child who gets very defensive and like, I don't like you, like your inkling as a parent is going to be to pull away or say, hey, you can't talk to me like that. That's rude. But what I know is when that defensiveness comes up, it's like, it's a pour in. Like we have to actually lean so much closer in and not let those little comments get to us, which can be tricky. And then our toddler, like she has moments too. Like I think last week she had a hard week because her big sisters were having tough weeks. So we were actually spending a lot more time with the two of them. And she's a pretty happy-go-lucky toddler, but she was definitely missing that connection time too.
Yeah. What's the moral of this story, Jess?
There's okay. I told you I was going to come back to my therapist lens.
Yep.
And I think when you feel guilt as a parent, I think sometimes we're too dismissive, like, oh, you should never feel guilt as a parent. Like I'll see stuff like that on Instagram, just like release yourself from all guilt or whatever.
Is that realistic?
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic. And I think when you feel guilt about something, you should tune in with that feeling and then tune in with your value system and try and understand where that guilty feeling is coming from, which is kind of what I had said to you at the top of the conversation. Like, I want to understand why I'm feeling guilty.
Right.
And one of the things that you were saying before is like, well, maybe is there a conflict between your values and what's actually happening? Maybe there's some people pleaser tendencies where you're like, you don't want your children to be disappointed in you. But what is like the guilt? I feel bad because I can't give all my love and attention to all my kids all the time. That's probably not actually what's going on here. There's something like behind that that's a value of ours that I think that's what we really need to figure out. And then you can figure out how you can release yourself from the guilt. But I think sometimes we oversimplify mom guilt or dad guilt, parent guilt, and just say, well, don't feel guilty. It's okay that you're a working parent, or it's okay that you can't give your kids all the time and love and attention. But I think it's actually better to go, well, what's the value that you're feeling in conflict with, and why is that coming out in guilt? So
wiser words have never been spoken.
What value do you think I'm in conflict with?
What value?
Or we? Because I think it could be our guilty feelings around this. I think we've identified that we actually do our very best to live within our values.
Yeah. To be honest, I feel like I don't feel the same level of guilt that you feel. And maybe this is just in general how I do things. I realize that there's maybe a desire from the kids to want to spend more time. So then I try and figure out when we can spend more time. And I'm not necessarily feeling like overly guilty about the few hours that we spend with them at the end of every day, the hour and a half that we spend at the beginning of the, like in the morning, and then all weekend. Yeah. Like that's just the reality of our lives. So we spend as much time as we possibly can. I would say we live within our values for the most part. Sometimes we get distracted by work stuff and where we have to talk, and that takes up some of that quality time. And then I feel like we readjust. We realize that, and we've talked about that before, where we say, okay, it's time for us to
just stop.
Yep. Let's
kids.
table this until after. Once all the kids are in bed, then we can continue having this discussion.
So you feel like you don't have like this feeling of guilt, like, oh, I don't give the kids enough of me.
I mean, I always feel like I would love to give them more, but again, realistically speaking, can we?
No, like I don't think we can.
Yeah.
And I mean, I even take Fridays off so that I can spend the entire day with them on that day too, which is a privilege, right? I think there's like two different things that are going on for me. So the one thing that always plays through my mind, and I don't know if I've told you about this, is years ago, like I don't, this might even be before I ran Nurtured First or Our Mama Village or anything like that. I was a therapist working with kids, and I came across someone who was actually the daughter of one of my professors that I really looked up to.
Oh, yeah, right.
Did I tell you this story?
Yeah, I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah, and the professor was incredible. The professor taught parenting. Like, so in my undergraduate degree, a lot of my courses were actually on child development and parenting. Makes sense given my profession now. And I really looked up to this professor. They were a leading expert in parenting and child development. And her daughter said to me, I said, oh, that's your mom? Like, oh, I love her. She's so smart and she's taught me everything, And the daughter was like, yeah, she's great at teaching parenting, but she was a terrible parent. And it hurt my heart because it was like, wait, all this guidance and information I took from this person, and she actually was a terrible parent. And so I think as someone who teaches parenting for a living, my absolute worst fear would be for my own children to grow up and be like, oh yeah, she helped millions of people around the world be a better parent, but she actually sucked at being a parent.
Right.
So I think
that's fair enough.
I have that fear, and that is in the back of my mind sometimes. I know if I really think about it that I am a good parent. And I mean, this is coming from me, so it's hard. It's hard to take it. But statement. I truly practice everything I preach with our girls. And I want them to feel so safe and loved. And those are my values. Like I truly do. And if I wasn't running Nurtured First, I would parent the same way I parent now, right? Like I don't parent this way because I run this business. I parent this way because I truly believe it's the most important way to parent our kids. And I believe in helping our kids grow up in safe and loving homes. Like that is a value of mine. just so happens that it's also my work to teach everybody this. So I think that's one fear that I have is like, I just don't want the girls to ever grow up and be like, yeah, she spent so much time teaching other people that she didn't actually spend time with me.
Right.
That's just a fear.
And now, the part of the show that you usually skip. But wait, don't touch that dial just yet, because today's sponsor might just change your life, or at least your bathroom habits. Let's talk about the potty toolkit from, yep, you guessed it, Nurtured First. Picture this. You're a parent staring into your toddler's eyes as they proudly poop in the corner. You've tried everything, letting them run around naked, promising them a toy pony if they use the potty, and even contemplating moving to a deserted island where diapers grow on trees. But nothing seems to work. Enter the Potty Toolkit by Nurtured First. This magical bundle of joy is designed to make potty training fun, easy, and, dare I say it, enjoyable for both you and your child. It's like having a team of potty training fairies at your beck and call, without the glitter and the creepy wings. The Potty Toolkit is packed with over 40 pages of stories, activities, games, and worksheets that will get your child excited to use the potty. And the best part? It's all backed by decades of research and designed by a team of child therapists who know their stuff. So if you're ready to ditch the diapers, head over to the link in the show notes and grab Potty Toolkit for 10% off. That's right, for less than the cost of a month's supply of diapers, you can have a fun-filled potty training experience. Don't wait, go to the link in the show notes now and get the Potty Toolkit by Nurtured First for 10% off today using the code ROBOTUNICORN. Your child and your bathroom floor will thank you. Do you think you're putting extra unneeded pressure on yourself? Because I feel like no matter how good your childhood is, when a child grows and becomes a parent themselves, or maybe not even a parent, but just grows up, there will be things that I think, regardless of how well you parented, there's going to be like, I don't think they did this right.
100%. I already know that there's going to be things that they come to me and say, well, why would you have done this? Or why would you have said that? Or,
Yeah.
And they're going to want their own therapy for stuff. And I think that that will also be a sign of a job well done, that they're like willing to communicate those stuff with me. And I'm already ready. Like I'm already ready to have those conversations and potentially be hurt by what they have to say when they're adults and they're like, hey, I didn't like how you did this and this when I was a kid. Or, you know, I wish you wouldn't have said this, or I wish you wouldn't have done that. Like I'm already ready to have those conversations and be an open and willing participant in them.
Do you think those will hurt?
Do I think that those conversations will hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But that'll
Why?
be okay. Just because it's me. And like, you don't think it would hurt you if the kids grew up and all of a sudden we're like, hey, Dad, you screwed up in this area. And now I'm going to go to therapy for it. I'm just letting you know.
In no way am I under the impression that I have not done things incorrectly.
Yeah.
So it will be important for, we've talked about this before, it's important for me that the kids know that we are not perfect.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the things that we do and we say now, they may not love in the future. Mm-hmm. Like we're not by any means perfect because we're humans. Mm-hmm. So if they were to come back to us in the future and say, hey, this really affected me and it's affected me to this day, it's not going to surprise me. I mean, yeah, I'll wish maybe I had done things better potentially, but that's...
But I would love to have a relationship with them where they feel comfortable telling us that and they know that we can handle it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
would
maybe
love
the
that.
difference is for me, because of how I grew up, I realized that messed me up a whole bunch. Mm-hmm. So my concern is that I do not want to pass on even a portion of that messed upness
To them.
to them.
Yeah.
And that's why I've said to you recently, like, at what point should we potentially even send them to a therapist just so they can work through anything that maybe I have done inadvertently?
Yeah.
Just because I don't want them to experience anything like what I experienced.
Mm-hmm. And this is too perfectionist raising kids. Like I'm just thinking to myself, like
Too perfectionist, but also we know we're not perfect.
Yeah, that know that they aren't perfect. We try and do the best that we can, but we know that there's room for error. And I do think, like, from my therapist lens, like, the beautiful thing that we are doing with the kids is we're pouring so much into this relationship with them. And, like, we're really trying to show them, hey, like, we want you to come to us. Even when they already are saying things, like our oldest saying, you know, you didn't spend enough time with me today. I really wanted to play horses, but, you know, you didn't have time to do that. And that was disappointing. Yeah. Like, even already they're able to tell that to us, and I'm not getting her in trouble. Like, how dare you say that? We're just like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's hard when you can't have us in the way that you want us to. Like, so we're already validating those feelings, even if we can't fix the way that they feel in the moment. So I do think that that's one of the really important things that parents can do when they feel stretched thin.
Right.
The other thing, so I told you that the one guilty feeling I have is like, I don't want to be a teacher of this information and then not actually
not be
do
a good
it.
parent.
Which I know logically that is not what's happening. So that's okay. As you would say, sometimes when I get anxious about things, I'll just go, check. So that's the one thing. And then the other piece is, I was raised by a stay-at-home mom, and I really valued that experience as a child. And I have been a stay-at-home mom for several years, even though I was working
Is it true?
on the side. Yeah. I mean, I was still working, but I was with the kids. Like,
yeah, true.
During the pandemic, like almost like 3 years of pretty much being home, mostly full time.
Yeah.
And now is the first time that I've ever been working, like truly working outside of the home 4 days a week. So this is just different for me. And
yeah, right.
I think that's where we differ. You've always
that's
worked
true.
5 days a week outside of the home. I've always been mostly home, and then, maybe I'll get a babysitter here and there so I can get some work done. And then that feels like a nice break for me to get work done. Now that our kids are a little bit older, it's the first time I'm actually like going to an office 4 days a week since before having kids.
Yeah, that's a big increase.
7 years.
It's true.
So I think that that's probably where my more of a guilty feeling comes out, because I'm like, well, I actually used to be the one that was with you 4 days a week. And now, I mean, our oldest is even in school. So it's like, even if I was a stay-at-home mom, she wouldn't even be home with me, right? But I think that's where I am currently working through some of these feelings myself, transitioning. Now I know the truth is that I could be a stay-at-home mom and be incredibly overwhelmed or feel more triggered, which I totally was when I was a stay-at-home mom, because there was a lot of things that were really, really difficult for me about that. Like all the things like doing all the laundry and the cooking and the cleaning and the mess and the overstimulation and all of that. Like now I feel like for me personally, this is not for everybody, but when I go to work and I come home, I have a lot more capacity to be fully present than I did when I was home full time. So I actually feel like there's a piece of me that is a better parent in terms of like the capacity that I have to give and pour into them than I was when I was there all the time and I was overwhelmed and trying to do all the things that I wasn't very good at and overstimulated. So there is that piece too. But I think that that's what I'm working through right now. And I think a lot of parents probably are in the same boat, like going back to work after having almost 7 years of raising babies at home. Like it's a big adjustment.
Yeah, and if you think too, not that you had it for our last child, but we have a year maternity leave, or up to a year and a half in Canada too.
Which we're so lucky to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in other countries, that's a completely different story too. So you have to go back after 12 weeks or something like that in the US. And I don't know what it is in other countries, but yeah, it's difficult, even though we're set up pretty well here, relatively speaking, for raising kids at home and spending enough time with them.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the piece. And then, so it's if I tune in with those values, it's like, well, why do I feel so triggered when our daughter, after me spending almost all day with her, says, well, you don't spend enough time? I think it just brings up this memory of like, well, you're not a stay-at-home mom, Jess. And your mom was.
It's always something deeper.
It's always something deeper. And I knew it was. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Because I'm like, it's not about not spending enough time, because I spend so much time with them. And what's the deeper feeling? It's like this feeling of guilt because I'm no longer a stay-at-home mom. Now I've transferred into being a working mom. And there's these internalized feelings of, does that make me a bad parent? And I know what I would say to any working mom. Like all my friends basically are working moms and they're incredible parents to their children. Like, and I see that. So I would never treat a friend the way I treat myself, but I'm very like hard on myself.
Why do you think that is?
I'm sure there's a deeper reason there too. Why is Jess a perfectionist when it comes to this? That's a whole other podcast episode probably. Why do you think that this is?
I don't know.
10 years being married, you haven't figured that one out yet?
Well, maybe I do, but I feel like this episode is almost me providing therapy to the therapist, so I want to continue along
I like
that
it. I know. It's kind of nice. It's a nice change of pace over here. Yeah, and I came into this episode knowing I wanted to be really honest about that. And I know we could have done this episode from a totally different lens where I just like provide my therapist opinion on all the things. But I think it's important to name that even the professionals can struggle with these feelings sometimes. And what I don't want to do is just get stuck in the guilt and be like, okay, well, then I have to quit my job and I don't want to get this frantic energy. Like, then I just give them more and give them more. Because I don't even think that's the answer to this, right? It's like you said, children will always want more. So it's okay for them.
Yeah, it's not like we provide a small amount of quality time with them.
Right.
So.
And if we really truly reflect, it's like, no, we actually provide a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
If we reflected, like there's been times for sure that I've reflected and been like, let's say the month of May, I went on a trip to Nashville for work. And then we went to Portugal for our 10th anniversary. And we were gone a lot that month.
Yeah.
Right. So that month when the kids were saying that and I reflected, it was like, yeah, actually, we haven't spent enough time with them and we really need to. And we really need to prioritize doing that. Right. So it's not always that we reflect and we're like, we're good. Just this time and this season, we're actually like, no, we are okay. So then is it okay for us to help them navigate feelings of disappointment? Is it okay for us to have those conversations and be like, yeah, that's really tricky. Let's journal it out.
It's probably an important skill to learn so they build resilience.
Yeah. It's part of them building resilience too, right? And I think the thing that we don't want to do is be like, just get over it. You have tons of time and be dismissive about it.
Yeah, right.
Or get angry at them about them asking for time with us. Like, I never want to do that. I want them to always know, like, I love spending time with you. I delight in spending time with you. And if I could, I would spend all the time with you that I could. But I can't. And that's okay too. And you're capable of handling those feelings. I'm still alongside you. I'm still going to help you navigate those feelings. But it's okay to be disappointed or even upset and help them navigate that so that they know that they can feel those feelings and still feel safe with us in relationship.
Sounds good. Well, I think that's a nice way to end off this episode.
Yeah. Well, once again, a messy conversation, but I hope that you feel a little bit seen if you're in the same boat and maybe you have some of your own thoughts on why this is triggering for you, and love to hear about it.
Let us know what you think of this episode.
Let us know. All right. We'll talk soon. Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We are glad that you are here. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it interesting, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a rating and a review. Scott and I actually sit down together and read them all. A 5-star rating helps us share our podcast and get these important messages out there. Thank you so much for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you again next time.